Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I want to take a very practical look at different green mixes, and I have three different greens in my palette. So the first one is a bright warm green, that's May Green by Schmincke. And then I have a darker warm green which is Sap Green, also by Schmincke. Sometimes I use the Sap Green by Winsor & Newton because I like it a little bit better. So the greens from Schmincke are not particularly to my liking. I find them a little bit artificial looking. And then the third one is a cool green, a Phthalo Green Blue Shade. And with these three greens I can mix a big variety of different green tones. Although you don't even need greens if you don't want to. If you have a very limited palette, then you could use a yellow and a blue, maybe a cool and a warm version of each, and you can also get a bit farther with your green mixing. So you can see the two different sap greens that I've sampled. The one on the bottom is the Winsor & Newton Sap Green. You can see it's a little bit nicer looking. And with these three greens, I take these as a base color and then I modify them as needed. And I will show you how the mixes can look like now. I will start with a May Green. And this is a bright, warm green that's useful for a lot of the light parts in foliage and meadow. And you can see when you mix it with yellow, particularly with a lemon yellow, you get a very clean, bright mix. And I'll just go through my palette and mix it with different colors now. So it's really great for light parts and foliage and meadows, particularly in spring, but also for sketches on very sunny days or in areas where you have the light shining through the tree tops. So I particularly like mixing it with a little bit of white and with lemon yellow for really bright spots. So you can see the May Green turns into this sort of brownish neutral green when you add reds, and then into almost a neutral, almost a gray green when you add violet. And it's also very interesting to add blues, so these will of course cool down the color a bit. So with cerulean blue added in, you will get a very nice granulating color, and also with the ultramarine blue that I just added. Then I have a specialty color. This is not a mix, this is cobalt green, which I actually sometimes use in place of a cool green when I have space in my palette. But so this has nothing to do with the May Green. I just thought that it would be nice to add another green here. So when you add earth tones to the May Green, you will get very muted, nice greens out of this color, particularly with the more reddish ones. Let's take a look at the Sap Green mixes. So this is a classical convenience green. It comes in a lot of variants. I really don't like this Schmincke version that much. As I said, the Winsor & Newton one is, I think, a little bit better, but you can easily modify it with some yellow mixed in. Here you can see I added sepia, which will turn it in this really dark, warm, almost brownish green tone. You can still get very nice mixes out of this color. It's very versatile, I find, particularly when you add a little bit of red, like chrome orange or vermilion in this case, and this will take the sting out, sort of it. So it will mute it just a little bit. And you can see when you add Dioxazine Violet, then it's almost neutralized, and it will darken a bit, which is due to the violet, and you can really get great shadow colors from this green. And when you add blues, you will get interesting cool blues, a bit lighter and more granulating with the cerulean blue, and then a really interesting sort of undersea green blue with ultramarine. And of course, if you want to darken something, you can always do so with gray or with a sepia, depending on what color temperature you need. You can see here when I add a dark burnt umber, it will turn the sap green into this really interesting dark warm green brown. So it always makes sense to think about the color temperature that you need and then make your mix accordingly and choose the pigments that you want to combine. And of course you could also add several colors to your mixes. The next green is the Phthalo Green, and this is probably the most artificial color in my palette and the most artificial green, and I never use it on its own. But it can produce useful other greens, and in fact it's often used in pre-mixed greens like sap greens too, because it's a very good mixer. So Phthalo Green is very overpowering and intense, so you have to be very careful and use it in moderation. And just as a practical tip, always try to reach into the other color first, because it can ruin your yellows if there's still some Phthalo Green pigment on your brush. So you can see this produces very interesting clean mixes, mostly in the cool spectrum, and if you add in to cool reds like alizarin crimson or quinacridone pink, then you get this really dark shadowy green that is really useful for things like spruces or shadows. And the same color pops up if you add cerulean blue and then a little bit of sepia, so you can play around with this. And the ultramarine blue makes it a little more bluish. And I can imagine all of these tones very well for things like the far background when you maybe sketch a hill or some woods in the background that seem far away, and then you can dilute your colors. You can see it's also very powerful together with dark tones, so it makes really great dark greens together with grays or with sepia. Okay, and now some other interesting mixes. So if you add white into any of the above, then this will make your mixed greens lighter but also cooler, because white will always cool down your mixes a bit. So if you want to have something light and warm, you will need to mix in some yellow ochre. And then I also have this sort of ultramarine and lemon yellow mix here to show you that you can definitely mix interesting variable greens from scratch, so you don't have to have these convenience greens. But if you need a lot of paint for a specific painting, then I always think it's better to use something that's pre-mixed instead of always reaching into the green and into the blue and yellow first. So you can spare yourself a little bit of mixing time if you use these pre-made greens. But you can see you can get very interesting and convincing greens from your blue and yellow palette too. So this is a phthalo blue together with some different yellows and a bit of sepia mixed in. And you can see this is the tiny spot I have for my cobalt green. And this produces very interesting neutrals, for example, with the vermilion I added here. I want to show you one more specialty color that I sometimes use, and let's see if I still have space on my paper here. I sometimes like to use green gold, which is this almost yellowish color. It's a single pigment. I think this is by Winsor & Newton, and it's a really pretty golden color, and you can see when you mix it with blues or with other greens, then it produces these really luminous glowing mixes. It's a really bright pigment, and I really like it sometimes for areas where there's light falling on foliage or sunlight on fields and stuff like that. Here I have combined it with phthalo green, so it's a really pretty color, I think. And sometimes I add this when I need a special effect, so to speak. So here are all of the greens that I just mixed. You can see it's a really interesting variety. And yeah, so how do you mix and combine your greens? I'd love to hear your favorite mixes and maybe some interesting hacks or strategies that you like to use. Just leave a comment below. It's really useful also for other viewers to talk about this. And so yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, feel free to comment, like and subscribe. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!